For a long time, I believed Lena and I were unbreakable. Ours was the kind of marriage that made people smile, steady, warm, the picture of a life well built. We had our little home full of laughter, two amazing kids, and a quiet rhythm that felt like safety. Friends would tell us we were lucky, and I believed them. We had survived job losses, health scares, even the tiny battles that chip away at some couples over time. I thought those scars made us stronger. I trusted Lena without question. She was my partner, my best friend, the one person I believed would always have my back. And because I believed in us so completely, I missed the early signs. The longer glances at her phone, the polite but distant hugs. The way our conversations grew shorter, thinner, like paper worn down by too many hands. Still, I told myself it was just life, getting busy, a storm we could weather like all the others before. Looking back now, I see it clearly. How trust, once taken for granted, becomes the easiest weapon to turn against you. Sometimes, the deepest betrayals aren't loud. They whisper through a door left ajar, or a glance too quickly hidden. It didn't happen all at once. It was little things, the kinds of things you notice, but tell yourself not to worry about. Lena started working later, claiming new projects were keeping her busy. She would smile distractedly at dinner, laugh a little too hard at texts she never shared, and slip her phone into her pocket the moment I walked into the room. At first, I chalked it up to stress. After all, we were both juggling careers, two growing kids, a mortgage, and a never-ending list of responsibilities. Of course she needed some space, I reasoned. Of course, she deserved her own life outside of our home. Trust, I told myself, was about breathing room. But deep down, in the part of me that still believed we finished each other's sentences, a cold unease started to bloom. Our conversations grew lighter, thinner, like leaves scattering before the first heavy snow. Our laughter, once easy and familiar, turned forced, brittle at the edges. I caught her tilting her phone away from me, answering calls in hushed voices behind closed doors. Still, I didn't confront her. I chose silence, believing love meant patience, believing loyalty would pull us through. I stood at the edge of something vast and invisible, telling myself the ground beneath my feet was still solid. I didn't know it yet, but the life I trusted so fiercely was already crumbling. The tiny cracks, spiderwebbing through everything we had built. The moment that shattered my comfort came on an ordinary evening, cloaked in the simplest of requests. My phone had died, and in a rush to send a quick email, I asked Lena if I could borrow her laptop. She barely looked up from the television, waving her hand toward it with a casual, distracted smile. I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining the tightness in her shoulders, the way her body stiffened when I opened the device. The browser was already up. Instinctively, my eyes flickered across the open tabs, and there it was. A conversation window, still glowing. A name I didn't recognize. Nathan K. I told myself to close it, to respect her privacy, but curiosity, or maybe something older, more primal, pinned me in place. I didn't mean to read it. I swear I didn't. But my gaze caught on a sentence, a strange mixture of humor and warmth, written in a voice that felt too familiar, too intimate for a simple work colleague. My heart stumbled in my chest. I scrolled up, and there were gaps, strange voids in the conversation, like words had been swallowed whole, deleted, hidden. My mind raced to find reasonable explanations, but they crumbled like dry leaves underfoot. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling the first undeniable cracks splinter through the story I had always believed about us. Something had shifted, and there was no unseeing it. I tried to shake it off, to bury the doubts clawing at the edges of my mind, but the unease only grew heavier with each passing day. It followed me like a shadow I couldn't outrun. One afternoon, while searching for a screwdriver in the cluttered chaos of our junk drawer, my hand brushed against something familiar, Lena's old phone. It had been tossed aside months ago when she upgraded, forgotten under loose batteries and half-dead pens. I hesitated, my pulse hammering in my ears. Part of me begged to leave it buried, but another part, the wounded part, needed to know. I powered it on with trembling fingers. By some small, cruel mercy, it was still logged into her messaging app. And there, alive and unfolding in real time, was the conversation with Nathan. At first, it was playful, inside jokes, teasing remarks, but the deeper I scrolled, the more the words sharpened into daggers. I saw my name mentioned, my habits mocked, my love reduced to something pitiful between them. Things I had whispered to Lena in the dark. Things no one else knew. Twisted and laid bare for another man's amusement. Worse yet, as I watched, lines of messages blinked out, deleted right before my eyes. I scrambled to capture what I could, frantic screenshots, desperate proof, but I knew I was only catching fragments. My chest tightened. This wasn't just a flirtation. This was betrayal carved deep into the bones of my marriage. After that day, something inside me shifted, not with a roar, but with a chilling, deliberate stillness. I stopped questioning Lena. I stopped chasing the scraps of affection she offered like pity. Instead, I became a ghost in my own home, moving quietly, observing everything. Every time her phone buzzed and she smiled down at it with that private little grin, I etched it into my memory. Every unexplained meeting, every late night whisper behind a locked door. I recorded with clinical precision. I hired a private investigator, a man who specialized in uncovering the kinds of truths people tried hardest to hide. At night, I would sit alone in the darkened living room, watching the screen of my old laptop glow with new updates. Blurred photos of Lena sitting in cafes she claimed not to have time for. Call logs filled with Nathan's number disguised under fake names. Every piece of evidence was another nail in the coffin of the life I thought we had. Strangely, it wasn't rage that kept me going. It was something colder, sharper. I need to know everything before I moved, to destroy any last thread of doubt. To be sure, when the time came, that I could cut her out of my life without hesitation or regret. Trust had once been the air I breathed. Now was the knife I sharpened. And the more I learned, the clearer it became. Lena wasn't just slipping away. She was already gone. It was a small detail, almost an afterthought, that changed everything. One evening, while combing through the investigator's latest report, I stumbled across a throwaway comment. Nathan's frequent visits to a local pharmacy. Always the same prescription. Curious, I dug deeper, my heart pounding as I pieced it together. Nathan had a serious heart condition, one he kept carefully hidden beneath a polished exterior. His heart was a brittle thing, overworked, patched together by medication and fragile hope. Suddenly, the stakes shifted. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal anymore. I was holding a live wire, crackling with dangerous possibilities. I sat there in the dim light of my office, staring at the information, feeling a strange calm wash over me. If Nathan was reckless enough to sneak around with another man's wife, he was reckless enough not to question a single misplaced pill. The idea slithered into my mind, cold and seductive. I didn't have to confront Lena. I didn't have to beg for explanations or suffer the humiliation of watching her lie to my face. I could end this in silence. With one simple, invisible act, I could reclaim my life, my dignity, and my children's future. No shouting matches. No public spectacle. Just a clean break. A quiet erasure of the man who thought he could steal everything I had built. The moment the thought rooted itself inside me, I knew I wouldn't be asking for justice. I would be taking it. When Lena floated the idea of a girls' spa weekend, it was almost laughable how easily she lied. She stood at the kitchen counter, twirling a strand of hair around her finger, her voice breezy, casual, too casual. I nodded along, playing the part of the understanding husband, masking the firestorm inside my chest with a practiced, easy smile. You deserve it, I said, my voice warm, my heart ice cold. She beamed at me, relieved I hadn't questioned her, and for the first time, I realized how little she thought of my intuition. That cut deeper than any words ever could. I watched her pack, watched her carefully select outfits she hadn't worn for me in years, her movements light, almost giddy. I offered to help load her bags into the car, even pressed a kiss to her forehead as she drove away. She thought she had fooled me. She thought I was still standing in the crumbling ruins of trust, desperately patching the cracks. What she didn't know was that I had already abandoned the wreckage. I wasn't just letting her walk into betrayal. I was holding the door open. That night, as she drove to meet Nathan under the illusion of secrecy, I sat at our kitchen table, calm, calculating, no longer a man clinging to broken promises, but something sharper, colder. She had mistaken kindness for weakness. She had mistaken love for blindness. And now, she was about to learn how terribly wrong she had been. The night was thick with silence when I made my move. The resort Lena and Nathan had chosen was tucked away by a glittering lake, a place meant for stolen moments and whispered promises. No cameras, no security guards, just easy shadows and locked doors that weren't quite locked enough. I parked in the darkness, heart steady, mind clear. This wasn't rage. Rage burns too fast. This was something slower, colder. An inevitability I had accepted. Finding their room was easy. The investigator had mapped everything. The door gave a soft sigh as it opened, and there, in the half-light, was Nathan's travel bag, carelessly tossed on the armchair. His pill organizer sat neatly on top. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. No locks, no second thoughts. I made the switch with a surgeon's precision. His heart medication replaced with something far more dangerous, a white tablet nearly identical, but designed to push his weakened body past its limit. The room smelled faintly of expensive cologne and anticipation. I left without leaving a trace, slipping into the night like a breath fading into cold air. As I drove away, headlights off until I hit the main road, I felt no guilt, only grim certainty. By the time dawn touched the horizon, my part would be done. I wouldn't need to raise my voice, shatter plates, or tear through our home screaming about betrayal. Lena would destroy herself with the very trust she had shattered, and I would be free. The trap was set long before Lena even realized she had walked into it. Weeks after Nathan's death, weeks of her drifting through the house like a ghost wrapped in regret, I suggested therapy. I framed it as concern, as love, and she clung to the idea like a drowning woman to a piece of driftwood. She thought I was trying to save her. In truth, I was guiding her toward her final undoing. The therapist, carefully briefed, created a space soft enough for Lena to unravel. It didn't take long. One gentle question, one sympathetic nod, and she crumbled. Through shaking hands and broken sobs, she confessed it all. The affair, the lies, the weekend she disguised as a spa trip, the way Nathan collapsed while they were tangled in stolen sheets, how she sat frozen, helpless, as life drained out of him. Every word fell from her lips like ashes, the death of every illusion I had ever built around her. I sat across from her, silent, watching her tear herself apart. Then, with deliberate calm, I pulled out the folder, screenshots of messages, photos of secret meetings, timestamps, receipts. Proof stacked neatly between us like a verdict. Lena's face blanched, the last bit of fight bleeding from her body. She realized in that moment she wasn't confessing to seek forgiveness. She was confessing because she had already lost. And for the first time since the cracks began to show, I finally felt a strange, hollow sense of peace. The divorce unfolded like clockwork, swift and silent. Lena, stripped of her defenses, signed every paper I placed before her without a whisper of protest. No custody battles, no public screaming matches, just quiet resignation. I secured the house, full custody of our children, and a future free from the wreckage she created. Lena moved into a small rental 2 towns away. Her presence fading from our lives like mist burned away by the morning sun. The whispers followed her, of course. Small towns never forget, and neither do they forgive. She became a ghost even among the living, a woman carrying a shame she could never outrun. Meanwhile, our home transformed. The laughter returned, rich and full, filling every hallway. I adopted a scrappy rescue dog for the kids, something Lena had always vetoed. His messy paws and boundless joy were the perfect symbol of our new beginning. Some nights, after the children were asleep and the house settled into silence, I would sit on the porch, feeling the cool night air against my skin. No regret, only the deep, unshakable peace of a man who had weathered the storm and won. In today's world, trust is both powerful and fragile, a foundation that must be guarded carefully. Harry's story reminds us that betrayal rarely explodes overnight. It grows quietly through neglect, distraction, and silence. In your own life, never take emotional distance lightly. Pay attention to the small shifts, the silences, the instinct that tells you something feels wrong. Protect your peace by setting clear boundaries, valuing self-respect above blind loyalty. Love deeply, but not blindly. And if trust is ever shattered, remember, healing doesn't come from revenge. It comes from reclaiming your dignity, your future, and your peace.